welcome to the table. Welcome to the grown folks table. So excited to pull up to the table tonight. Are you excited to pull up to the table, ladies?
Yeah.
Excited. Let's
Well,
do it.
we want to hear from you tonight. We're still talking about women and women's history and the impact of women, and most importantly, tonight we're talking about women in entrepreneurship and the spike of women entrepreneurs that we've seen due to the impacts of COVID. Um, One of the things that we do realize that due to the pandemic, many people lost their jobs. I believe the numbers at one point was at 3.5 million. And majority of those people that lost jobs were women, were impacted by women. And so we can only help but say that that had a lot to do with women now wanting to own their own businesses, and the fact that maybe some of them having children and schools being shut down didn't had to pivot and figure out different ways to bring in income. And so I love the fact that we as women began to rally around each other and support one another, and now even can support women own businesses. Tell me, ladies at the table, how do you think this has really I know we keep hearing the future is female, and we believe the future is here, but how has this really pulled things forward for you in seeing more women entrepreneurs?
Landscape. Um, you have had so many people have lost their jobs. So many people were laid off. People been on jobs for over 20 years. But I think at the same time, it gave opportunity for women to think about entrepreneurship. I think the pandemic pretty much fueled that. And in that, I think women began to look within themselves and realize their talent and their skills and began to tap into what they had to offer someone. And I think it had been on the rise. I think since December, it's like 1 out of 4 started businesses. It's a great opportunity because women were desperate. They were in desperate situations, losing jobs, had rent to pay, bills to pay, and then being mothers and being at home every day. You got to educate your children. And so it's so much. And then at the same time, they had to be caregivers. So with so much on a plate for a woman, and to go out to that 9 to 5, I think it had become just very difficult. But the pandemic gave everybody an opportunity to just kind of revisit and just kind of reinvent yourselves. The fact that you may have had one type of career you were doing, but it lent itself to think about some other things that you were creative and you could do. And I've seen so many women doing so many phenomenal things, starting so many incredible businesses because of it, and just tapping into what they had, and then resources, and those who were able to actually start, because it's not easy for everyone who may not have had the funding to start a business, because you do need some kind of capital starting. But those who were able to do that, I think they were able to do it and, tap into resources and just get out there and start something new. And it's just been great, I think, for a lot of people that I know were able to do it, because you had so many people, small businesses, and I do know some small businesses that had to fold, and it's unfortunate, been around over 10 years, they could not survive. Then you have people who are afraid that they wouldn't even last for 1 year. But I'm glad to see that so many women did decide to get out there and just tap into what they had inside of them and making it work.
Mm-hmm.
Also there's a lot of funding sources now, ladies, as a result of the pandemic. And so while things have been maybe limited a little bit in the past, I think that with in particular with our new administration, there's a commitment to help restart the economy, which would include financing or helping upstarts with women businesses. I also was thinking about, this has been a great opportunity for women to collaborate together. to cross collaborate. And sometimes you don't have enough to sustain you on your own, but by networking and coming together, it's empowered women to do even more. I saw some friends of mine that are coming together and starting a wealth management company, about 5 different women. That's a collaboration that perhaps they may not have thought were possible in times past. So this crisis, and I think the Chinese, as an old Chinese proverb that says, crisis is nothing more than opportunity. The crisis of the pandemic has created in our minds opportunities that we can put some teeth, some meat on the bone, so to speak. So I think it's a great opportunity. I think a lot of women have lost jobs. I think E will probably speak to the fact that she had to shift a lot of things with having to be a stay-at-home mom, not by choice, to become an educator, not by choice. And so you still need to thrive financially for your family. So it's coming up with creative ways on how to collaborate with other women who are in the same situation as you. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity.
Well, yeah, I definitely had to pivot in that direction. It became challenging, to figure out a way to be at home and be with the children and still bring in some dollars, And so I had to be very creative and innovative with doing that. And it did put women in a position to be more innovative with that. Childcare took a huge hit in the due to this pandemic. So parents that had smaller children that weren't even school age kids that normally would take their kids to daycare weren't able to do that. And so you're looking at, well, what do I do for money now? Because I can't go to work. I can't take my child, to childcare, and they can't go to school. And not only that, grandma and them may not be able to keep the kids because we got a pandemic. Everybody is, social distancing. So it was so many barriers put up for women that women they were almost forced, like Dolores stated, to come up with a different way to bring in some funds. So you started to see before, I think, my hats go out to these women that do the $5 jury. What is it called? The $5 jury people. Paparazzi. Now, before, paparazzi was taking off, but when that pandemic hit, boy, you start seeing them paparazzi women coming out of nowhere, doing Facebook Lives, inboxing you. I mean, they was coming up with some real strategies to sell this jury. Now, where we was going with all this jury, I had no idea. I don't know what. Maybe it was a little retail therapy because we sure wasn't going nowhere wearing it. But Joyce, talk about what you've seen as an entrepreneur, the spike in women just coming up with different levels of businesses to offer during this particular time,
including me.
Yes.
So, I just to give a little bit of background, in what I do, I made a lot of additional money by making appearances and speaking engagements and things like that. And then when the pandemic hit, I was still employed, but I'm like, I need them extra coins I was making that I enjoyed making. And so even for me, I was like, okay, how can you still do some of those extra things by still being at home? And through your encouragement, Pastor E, things just started in prayer. Things just started happening. I through my company, I was a pretty much a talent agent. Like I would help organizations like the 100 Black Men of DeKalb and Rainbow Push and a lot of other organizations actually get talent to perform for their different events and conventions and things. And so when the pandemic hit, a lot of that stuff went away. But then all of a sudden, this Zoom and Versus and just all kind of good stuff started happening. So it encouraged me to say, hey, I'm still here. And if you need talent book for, some of your virtual events that you're having, then I can help out. And one organization, hit me right up, and I helped them get a phenomenal speaker, and they cut a nice check. So I mean, and I see that not only in me, but I have seen it in other women in my industry, and just in general. I have nieces, unlike Vicky, who's losing all this weight, some folks still want some cupcakes. And so, and so
Libby.
I have a niece who for Christmas, like Libby did, hey, you need a cake? And I mean, and she had like boxes and stacks of orders. I have a niece who was also selling hats and jewelry, saying one day you're gonna go out and you're gonna want to be sharp. So and she was selling like crazy. And then I had people to call me and say, hey, I am getting into your business and you've been in it a long time. Would you help train me to become a personality? And I'm like, by way of Zoom? They were like, yeah. I'm like, okay, we can do that. So it also led me to be creative, utilizing the experiences and the networks that I have. And I saw it so much in women. We do a business network on my radio station, and we spotlighted these people who created these jobs. And it was endless number of people who would call on a weekly basis talking about the businesses that they had created and started before, or even more so during the pandemic. So it also had to, like the light bulb went off in me as well to supplement this money that I used to receive prior to the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. I think the pandemic didn't hold anybody back as far as online orders. Now, if you was waiting for people to come in to your establishment to do business with you, you missed out on a whole lot of paper trail. But if you launched some type of business online where people could tap into your product or your service online, I believe that that this pandemic really opened up some doors. I know Libby was showcasing cake after cake after cake after cake after cake, and until one day I just said, "No, Libby, I need one of them cakes. bring me one of those cakes." Libby, I know you are a jack of all trades and you have a couple of different businesses, but talk to us a little bit about what you think the space even did for you as an entrepreneur.
I just think that it opened up every avenue that I would want to go into. I think there was no limits to what we could do. It was the year of the woman. We were getting so much traction as women anyway, particularly let's talk about the African-American women, all of the strides and things that we had made. So it was just high time. People were supporting Black-owned businesses. So it was wide open. So for me, I just basically, I've had this bakery business, but I did it through my event planning company, part of the package, and never did it very independently. One is because I knew the work that came with it, and I just wasn't ready to work like that. But I lost my job. And so when I wasn't working anymore because I got laid off because of COVID, then it was that time for me to do what George was saying. Wait a minute, I need to bring in some more of these coins. And I just started baking. Well, I just posted a cake. And once I posted the cake, that, it just went. But the idea I had was posting cakes that I knew didn't necessarily have to be really necessarily big cakes for big occasion, for big events that people are used to having, because people are having events. Well, since people are not having events and they're at home, still want to do small birthday celebrations. So I thought about how can they get a fancy cake, still nice, but small enough to be a part of this COVID kind of celebration. And that's what really, I think, allowed my business to grow, because I was intentional in targeting the audience that I was looking at. And I knew that I had to do something different than what we were doing before. People were not having all this, where they having, 72 cupcakes and 3-tier cakes and things of that nature. And so once you start getting into that business, it just, the product sells itself. And I mean, which led to a lot of different other avenues that I was able to even do, even my paralegal services business that opened up. So I think it was just time for us to be creative. I think it was a time that all the gifts and talents that we have had, that God has been ushering us to use, that we have been too busy to take time to hone and to nurture and to really get into our crafts. This was the perfect time that we were in this be still kind of moment, that God can really nurture that thing in us that he had been giving us, and saying, I have given you this to birth, and you've been doing this, you've been doing that. Now that you have all of this time, and now you can actually develop it. So that means, women had a lot of time to do YouTube trainings, Zoom trainings, all kinds of things to learn different tricks and trades. I can't tell you how much. You say retail therapy. I can't tell you how many clothes. At one point, I had a sunglass fetish. I was buying all kinds of sunglasses, because if I was going to be in the mask, I still want to be cute. So I thought about that thing. How else more can I be cute than switch up my glasses? So I got into this whole thing. But guess what? It was so many ads about sunglasses all over social media. There were ads upon ads upon ads about these sunglasses, because we're not doing anything else, but we are driving to the grocery store. We're going to get gas, things like that. So why not, dress up with shades? I can't tell you how many I bought. T-shirts have become so popular now. People are on Zoom,
Yes.
They're on StreamYard.
Yes.
So they're doing Facebook Lives. And so you're seeing what you're seeing now. So people are now wearing these messages on the shirts. And so T-shirts begin to sell. So I think it was, and women are just creative. We've been creative. We've been doing things like this anyway. I just think that we just needed an open door. And so, yes, the pandemic has hurt a lot of us in a lot of ways, but it surely has opened a lot of doors for women to step up and get in the forefront. And I'm glad about that.
And that's why I even jumped in the production space. I remember first doing it at my church. We did a Christmas affair concert, and the first time I did it was last year, and it went over well. I'm like, okay, you just record, and you said, oh, okay. And so when I used to do this show called Passion and Poetry, which would sell out Center Stage Theater, every Valentine's, 3 shows, and I said, okay, Joyce, let's give it a shot, and it did well, and I'm looking to do more of those kinds of productions on an on-demand scale, with someone who saw that production and said, okay, I have all the equipment to get it recorded and edited and done, and you got the avenue to do the talent. And that's what Vicky was saying about collaboration. It's like, okay, so you mean I ain't got to worry about no camera, but all I need to do is book an act. Okay, let's do this. And so there's something in the near future that's going to come of that, because of talent and creativity and idea. And I think if on this show tonight, we should encourage people, and women in particular, to think about what you've been doing a lot for someone else, and see how you can now do it for yourself, because you can. There is a way to make those things happen.
You know what?
And leasing
Joyce,
spaces too have become very inexpensive too. Just an FYI to women who are watching, that to lease spaces because of the pandemic and economics, you can go and lease a space now for nothing and get yourself ready for the quote unquote opening up. So there's a lot of women entrepreneurs who are doing that, who are expanding their businesses within shopping plazas and things of that nature, because the spaces, and then locking in those contracts for 2 and 3 years, because the spaces are now pretty inexpensive to lease.
You know what, Libby, the one thing I've been thinking about being in the educational space, and I said this recently at a recent board meeting, is that this pandemic forced us out of the box, and it forced a new way of thinking and a new way of living. we in education has been totally transformed. It's been turned upside down. And we've discovered that we could educate very differently from what we thought. You know, prior to this, it was cookie cutter education. You come to the schoolhouse, you're there from 8 to 3, and you know, you do this, you do that. It's very regimented. But now it's opened the door for a lot of creativity. And so the challenge, as I said to my fellow board members, is to be careful not to revert back to the same. Once you that vein of creativity, Joyce, and that collaboration, and these ideas that Libby's even shared, once you open yourself up to it, the challenge will be to revert back to what you thought was our old normal, and we should never go back. Because what we knew back then will never exist at the level it was before. It will never be the same. And so the goal has to be to keep moving forward through new innovation, through new collaboration, and you'll find that you can make money easier than you did before. Because sometimes now in this new virtual space, you're making money from the comfort of your own home. And everybody's in their home doing something different, and they come on a screen and they collaborate and produce something. Can't go back. It doesn't exist. We have to keep moving forward.
I would just share this because being in a nonprofit organization, and it is, you know, women's organization, and it was hit hard because when you think about the pandemic, because we were organization and we're nonprofit, and a lot of our funding come from fundraisers. So we were now in a situation where we had to think about how we continue to raise funds. And so you had to get creative, and of course, everything on Zoom, and start bringing things to Zoom, and doing your events and your fundraisers. And I know Pastor had one, and it worked out pretty good. So we'll be having one in April. We'll see how that works out, because that is the hard part, because you get people to follow you when you're doing something live. But now when you have to do it Zoom, and then you put a little cost behind it, people get afraid. But again, we have to creatively think, because this is still a business. It's an organization. We still have to run it like a business, and we still have to raise funding that supports it. So that was very difficult for us because everything was shut down. Our national organization shut everything down. We couldn't do anything face to face. They didn't care how you get it done, but they want you to get it done. Okay, get it done, but you can't do anything face to face. So, but that was interesting. But we were able to do that, and I was just happy about that. But and just some of the businesses that didn't survive, because I would say my granddaughter was in the gymnastics for 10 years. I watched her as a 3-year-old join that, and to watch when they had to go under, when they had to close their doors, it was heartbreaking for them when they had to do that. You know, just watching all those kids, they have grown up in that business because they just could not survive. And you, again, you have to really start thinking. So we all got together, start trying to think about it, just try to keep the team together. So we all just try to find some gyms or some people that would allow them to come in so they could keep them together as a team. So as you talk about collaboration, and that does work, and that did work during the pandemic. It did work for them. Although they had to close the gym, but doing a collaboration allowed to keep the team together. And they found another gym that was surviving, maybe thriving, to where they could put the girls in that. But I would tell you, and I'm gonna throw my niece a plug, because my niece is one. She was working from home, and it seemed like every year or two she'd get laid off her job. And so, but she's very creative. She's very creative and talented. I tell you, I wish I had that. I wish I was as creative and talented. And so my birthday came, that was in July. She came by and brought me these beautiful balloons. She said, I made these. They were just so pretty. And so I think it was somebody else's birthday. When my husband's birthday came, I would tell you, it took my daughter taking the SUV. She said, I have to go pick up some balloons she made for him. I would tell you all, it was incredible. So we got her, we say, you need to start a business. So she was that one and four because she didn't think it was possible, just not even thinking about it.
Mhm.
But it was something that, because she had all these talents and creators. A lot of times people don't know how to get started. And I would tell you, because I'm going to have to give you all her phone number. I mean, it's unbelievable. We were telling her what other people are going out there and paying and these other services, you can do it. I mean, the work is incredible. And the fact that when you have the time, because now the pandemic gave everybody the time to be able to do those things, because you don't have to go to 9 to 5, you don't have to leave your house. So you have more time. And I always say the time we have spent, and I think it was Joyce or Vicky may have said, all the time we spend in these corporations, because I know when I worked in corporate, I was spending 10, 12 hours a day. And you can invest that time in yourself, just what you can do.
And we did see that across social media. We saw so many women leading in being innovations from the creation of masks. You know, when we first started talking during the podcast live, and I was picking, and I told you, I said the new trend for the summer is not going to be shoes. It's going to be the different kind of masks that you see. And you saw women create all types of masks. People were making masks in their home, connected to the blouse with bling on it, you know, just everything you could possibly think of when it comes to masks, to the shields, all of that, till drive up birthday parties. We've had some parade birthday parties. Who would have ever thought? And then a good friend of mine does pop-up picnics or something where she comes to you and provides you with everything you need. I mean, so people were having to be very creative to provide. Oh, and another friend of mine started a similar business to what you said your niece did with the balloon business, where she was delivering the balloons to you. You know, it's somebody's special birthday. She was doing balloon delivery. You didn't have to go to Party City or to Dollar Tree. She would make this special balloon and deliver it to the person for their birthday. So you saw women, these are all women doing creative things in these spaces to launch their businesses. I remember at the Redress Brunch in 2020, it happened right before the pandemic kind of broke out. We honored the young lady from Amazon who does their intelligence with their technology, the technology intelligence program with them. Well, she recently went out and purchased 12 acres in Jacksonville, Mississippi, to launch her own business out there. And that's just phenomenal. So she used this time to say, okay, what I did for Amazon, what I did for Amazon, it was called artificial intelligence. I'm going to go out there and purchase 12 acres of my own and create my own business. Beautiful. Beautiful. And so that's just only a small story of what we've seen. We've seen women purchase, become owners of gas stations, have broken into those industry. We've saw women purchase, I know a young lady purchased a Chick-fil-A. She became an owner operator of a Chick-fil-A. So we've really seen women start to venture out to bring in their own revenue during this time. And I think, like we've all kind of said, that out of some type of struggle and problem, we've held back for a long time to say, okay, if given the opportunity, I will create a resolution for this. Now let me figure out how to, get money for it or turn it into revenue. And so, of course, people used to pick at me a long time ago and say, okay, I was a t-shirt queen. I make a t-shirt for everything. Well, in the in the pandemic, oh my God, I have a t-shirt room at this point because during the pandemic, what were we wearing? Where were we going? So athleisure wear became the choice. And not only that, the messaging, so we put Gucci down, we put all those other people down, poor Michael Kors and poor what's another brand that Ann Taylor. We put all them down. No going into the store to buy Ann Taylor for what? Well, you can just spend $20 on a t-shirt and just wear it to the grocery store.
I was still online buying stuff though. Listen, I was still, because everything was inexpensive. Everything.
Yes.
But to your point, Edith, you're making. Another thing is that resources are now more available for women.
Yes.
So in this pandemic, the resources became, being able to tap into those resources became phenomenal. You were able to get money easily. You were able to get, networking opportunities to different things. Things became a lot easier to do. So whereas it was tougher for us to get into spaces, now it's easier. And here, the thing is that those who have done well, they were already ready for the stage, because preparation does not happen day of. It happens long before the stage is in front of us. And so a lot of these women who are doing well in their entrepreneurship, they've been getting ready. They didn't know when this door was going to open or how it's going to happen, but they were writing things down. They were putting their visions in journals. They were sketching out things and researching. And as soon as that door opened, boom, they took off. And you see them doing well. And that's another thing about women that we have to learn to do. We have to take advantage of the opportunities in front of us, and we cannot put it off for later, put it off for family, put it off for husband, put it off for children. We gotta take advantage of the opportunity, because opportunities like this don't come very often, to where money is flowing freely and doors are opening, and people are sensitive to, for lack of a better word, to women. They're sensitive to African-American women. They're sensitive to women in general. And so we need to take advantage of the fact that we are able to go into these places and we're able to get stuff and be entrepreneurs. And we don't have to take all our gifts and talents and use them in corporate America spaces or other spaces. We can start reinventing ourselves. And you see a lot of people who've retired, reinventing themselves and doing all kinds of business ventures. I'm talking about from food delivery services to all types of things. We're seeing them do very creative things. And that's because money is now available. It's just not a small amount for a small segment of people. And you don't have to have this credit score to have it, or you don't have to have this amount of assets. They are now being lenient with borrowing. And so we're able to get into those spaces and do great things. So it's just a great time for us. And I think we just got to take advantage of it.
So our challenge today at the table is, what business are you going to start? Drop it in the chat today and let us know what business are you going to start, or what business you're going to expand. This is the year for women, and this is the year for women businesses. And so don't be left out of the expansion and starting your own business. Thank you so much for joining us at the table tonight. We'll be right back here next Thursday. Don't forget to subscribe to all of our podcasts on all podcast channels. Good night.